Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another video. This is another paid request, this time for Nate. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting pretty much any type of videos, whether it be a commentary, a reaction, a topic, a review, re-review, randomness, out of the blueness, whatever it may be, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. Now this is for a film called Nightmare at Noon, and this is the second of two movies Nate wanted me to talk about. The first one being The Carpenter, another Wings Hauser film. And this is the second Wings Hauser. Again, of the request. Now, Wings Hauser, like I said, I liked as an actor. My favorite of his would be Mutant from 1984. Because I like Creature Feet. Was that Creature? In a way, it's zombie. In a way, Creature. Because they're people, they're zombies, but they have like acid coming out of their hand. Yeah, I liked it for what it is. And that also had Bo Hopkins as the sheriff. And the two of them are in this movie as well. And in a way, this is kind of trying to be a remake of Mutant. Because they're both movies that star Wings Hauser and Bo Hopkins. They're both, at one point, Wings Hauser is with someone, comes into town, just like Mutant, it was him and his brother. Here is Wings Hauser and his wife. They come into town, and there's some kind of weirdness going on, where the town folk are starting to turn into non-human, or this maniac. In this case, if they get shot, you got green blood. It's very, very, very loose, but it felt like as if someone said, hey, let's kind of remake Mutant and try to be a little bit more of an action movie. What made the film, when I first saw this back in the day. My friend Efrey mentioned this. He was a fan of the film. And me, him, and Mike, OCP Communications, all three of us watched it. And I remember not being big on it. Watch it again, it's okay. It's a time waster. Granted, number one, because I've seen 200 way worse movies than this. Number two, I just got done watching The Carpenter with Wings Hauser, which came out the same year, 1988. That's a much more slow, boring snore fest. At least this has some decent stunts, has some action, has a pretty good cast. At least there's something. I still have issues with the film, mainly the third act, but I'll get to that. But this was decent for what it was. You know, it's a time waster. This, like I said, a couple of decent stunt set pieces. The actors. Bo Hopkins is Wings Hauser's number one on the call sheet, but Bo Hopkins is really more the star. Now, Bo Hopkins, he's another actor I enjoy. Like I said, he was in Mutant with Wings Hauser, but he was also in From Dusk Till Dawn 2, which I like that film. I know not a lot of people do, but I did like Scott Speedo's crazy camera work, point of view, direction. I like Robert Patrick. I thought Robert Patrick and Bo Hopkins worked well together. There's some bad CG when some of the vampires die, but I think for a direct-to-video film, there's a lot of fun energy to it. Plus, again, I like Robert Patrick and Bo Hopkins in it. That helped a lot as well for me to enjoy it. He was also in Midnight Express, famous film from back in the day. Bo Hopkins is a hitchhiker. Wings Hauser and his wife are traveling via their Winnebago, their RV, more like RV. They pick Bo Hopkins up. They come to this town. The town sheriff is George Kennedy. George Kennedy from the airport movies, the Naked Gun films. He was in with Leslie Nielsen. He was in The Terror Within, the first one. He was in The Delta Force with Chuck Norris. He's been in a decent amount of movies. May he rest in peace. Good actor, good character actor. He plays the sheriff. Brion James plays your villain. Brion James, he was in 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte. You probably remember him the most from Blade Runner. He's one of the replicants. He's the one who has Harrison Ford, time to die. He's the replicant at the very beginning of the film. When the guy's asking him questions and Brion James like, my mother. Let me tell you about my mother. Then shoots the guy. That's Brion James. He's been in a lot of other stuff. May he rest in peace. The Horror Show with him and Lance Henriksen. I enjoy that film. Brion James you would see in quite a bit of stuff. Usually as the villain. He plays an albino, which I thought was a weird choice. And the director, Nico Mastorakis, I can't pronounce his last name. Nico is his first name. There's some weird decisions in this movie. A lot of weird decisions that I think hurt the film. And I wish this was from a different director. I think if you had 1988, who could you have had? Because the people I'm thinking of, they were already working on other stuff. If you just had a more competent director in terms of action, or in terms of detailing what works and doesn't work with this plot, I think you get a much better movie out of this. Again, like, why is Brion James albino? Why are the bad guys doing this? Is there... Was it ever... I don't think it was ever explained why him and his military guys want to infect the water supply of this town. Why is it that in order to infect the water, Brion James has to have a gun and then put the fucking liquid from Reanimator in it and shoot at the water? And by shooting at the water with this thing, it infects the water. I'm like, well, why don't you just pour it? I guess, they want to be far away, but... I thought it was just weird to have to shoot it with a gun. He killed the lake. He killed the water. I also found it weird that when Brion James puts on the sunglasses, he looked like John Carpenter nowadays. Like, I know that's me. I love John Carpenter, but again, if you watch this film, you see Brion James, when he puts his sunglasses on, he looks like John Carpenter does nowadays. Again, why are the bad guys doing this? It's never really explained. For the shits and giggles, just to see what happens. So like I said, Bo Hopkins is hitchhiking. You find out later he used to be a detective, but some dumb shit happened. He rides into town with Wings Hauser and his wife. Wings Hauser, I like. He doesn't really have a lot. When I say he doesn't have a lot to do, he's in the film a lot. But it's just he's always either getting his ass kicked, or he always needs saving. There's 1 or 2 times he shoots an individual, but mostly it's him either needing saved, or getting wounded, or complaining. And that's when, Wings is number 1 on call sheet, but Bo Hopkins is more of the hero, as more of the strong... character in this movie. I think that was one of the things when I first saw this. I'm like, man, I knew Wings Hauser more than Bob Hopkins, and I'm like, man, this Wings Hauser, he's not doing much. He doesn't seem like he's doing much in this. He's hanging around, but he's not really kicking a lot of ass, taking a lot of names. But I do think Wings Hauser and Bo Hopkins work well together. I thought so in Mutant. I think they do in this as well. I think Bo Hopkins is a lot of fun. He's definitely a big plus for the movie. Early on, they're at a diner, and one of the people who are infected is a water supply. They are going crazy. Stabs the fucking waitress in the hand, and Wings Hauser's like, what are you doing? What the fuck? And then he just choked out, and then Bo Hopkins kind of finishing his meal. Finish a drink. Okay. It breaks over the guy's back, and the guy turns to Bo Hopkins. And when he gets grabbed, Bo Hopkins like, oh shit. and he gets thrown about. Like, that's fun. Okay, like, stuff like that, I enjoy those little character moments. They do help more than some people realize. And for the good first half of the film, despite a lot of craziness that you have to take a leap of faith on, it's fun. What I mean by that, like, not only the stuff I mentioned before, but Brion James's military group, they have these machines, or whatever the hell they are, around the perimeter of the town, so when someone is trying to drive off, Brion James is on a computer, and they'll either fry the electrical system on the fucking RV, or it'll fuck up the CB radio of the police officer's car. I forget what the hell it's called. Jamming? Yeah, jamming. Yeah. So, somehow, with his computer, he was able to jam the CB radios. He was able to have these machines nearby, and they fuck up the electricity of the RV. I mean, okay. Sure. And when it spits at the town going crazy, and like George Kennedy is the sheriff trying to understand what's going on, and there's like people getting hit by cars, there's people shooting other cops, there's when they get shot, green blood comes out. There's even a point where Bo and Wings Hauser has to fight a guy, one of them infected in a junkyard. And there's some nice, like, fun, crowd-pleasing moments, like Bo Hopkins shoots the shit out of one with a shotgun. And again, those two worked well together. Like when Wings Hauser shoots one of the few people who does, and Bo's like, "Sheriff told us not to kill anyone. You know, don't shoot to kill." And then Wings like, "Oh, well, next time I guess I'll ask their permission." I just wish they stuck with that George Romero, the crazies, you know, the town is... And that's the thing, it's not the first time this has happened. Again, Mutant, 1984, that felt more horror than this. But that did before this. And again, even George Romero's The Crazies, which to be honest, I'm not really big on that film. I don't think I hate the film, it's just... I actually remember liking the remake of The Crazies more. But I wish it stuck with that. Them in the town... have some more action. Just sometimes there's cutaways, and have some more action of you two and George Kennedy, and then George Kennedy's daughter, who's a deputy. The four of you. Maybe somebody gotta barricade yourselves and do an assault on Precinct 13 situation, or the four of you going from town to town, knocking this out, or have to shoot someone. I think there's a lot of action that could have been more milked into it. Now granted, there's some nice stunt set pieces. You know, there's cars hitting, flipping over, there's a guy on a motorcycle who's shooting at people, and Bo shoots at the guy, and the guy on the motorcycle, boom, hits a vehicle, and he fucking flies far. And there's fire, and really, really well done stunt by whoever did the stunt for that scene. Very nicely done. This motorcycle crash, great stunt. The biggest problem for me, despite the little nitpicks I have here or there, and some of them bigger than nitpicks, the third act. When this is the third act, it feels like a different movie. Because they've gathered whoever they could to the hospital. Pretty much tell them stay there. George Kennedy and Bo and Wings Hauser and the George Kennedy's daughter. They go in the situation. Something happens. And then it's the rest of our characters going to the desert on horses. And it's like, is it trying to be kind of a Western? And it's just them doing some gunfights with some soldiers. And the gunfights aren't really that remarkable or exciting or memorable. Wings Hauser, like I said, didn't get to do much. He gets wounded. And again, Bo is more the hero. He's shooting some of the soldiers, but it's just like, what movie is this? Because you look at Nightmare at Noon, you look at the cover, you look at the synopsis, and it's like, why are we getting away from, for lack of better describing them, the zombies? They're not technically zombies, but I don't know how else, the infected. Why are we getting away from them? Why is the story going away from them? Why don't, oh, now we gotta deal with the infected and these military guys. That'd be even more of a hardship. And no, instead we're out of the town. We're in the desert, wide open spaces. And then, I know earlier in the film, they talked to a radio guy, and they said, if you're able to get through, contact the military, tell them what I told you. That still doesn't explain, to spoiler for the finale. Spoiler starting now. Bo knows Bo, and is chasing after Brion James. Brion James has a helicopter that rises behind him. Well, then Bo has a helicopter that rises above him. And I'm like, how the fuck did... Okay, so the guy on the radio had to tell these military people that there's people infected and green blood, and number one, they believed him. Number two, they sent a fucking helicopter over there. Number three, how did they know where the fuck Bo was exactly at? How did they know exactly where he was at? Did he have a tracking device shoved up his cornhole? Did Bo Hopkins have that? And that's how the helicopter found him? There's a whole lot of space out there. How the fuck did the helicopter find him? How the fuck did the helicopter know who was the villain and who was not? Technically, how did it know that it needed the cue to rise up above and beyond, or behind Bo when the timing was right? And then Bo wounds Brion James, kills him, puts one of those reanimator type of vials into the guy's mouth, kicks it in. So now, you know, would have been nice if Brion James got more of a glorious death. Like his body convulsed and he blew up, or his head blew up, or he melted all the way, like something extravagant. No. And then for like the last well, not the last, but for like 3-minute scene of bad guy helicopter and good guy helicopter chasing each other through the cavern. Why should I give a shit? I don't know who the fuck is in that chopper. I don't know who the fuck is in that chopper. Why should I care? It's not even like, oh, you just had, well, Wings Hauser is wounded, but he had helicopter lessons because he just took them. And you could have established that earlier. And he, like, went back to a chopper. I don't know. Why would there be a chopper there? I don't know. Maybe there's a bad guy chopper. Maybe they had 2 choppers. One was on the ground filling up while the other was doing its thing, and Wings Hauser knocked someone out or shot someone and then took that chopper. The thing is, there's usually when you have these chase scenes, the reason we care is because someone we know is in one and a bad guy we grew to hate is in the other. This is strangers and strangers, stranger danger, chasing each other. Why should I give a shit? It's like the most out of nowhere helicopter chase I have ever seen in a movie. And when I first saw this film, that was my reaction of, why did this film get away from the horror? Why did this film get away from the infected? Why did this film become like a generic, middling action film that I would see done better in films that start Gary Daniels, Jeff Wincott, Jeff Speedman, or fucking Martha Costos? It just lost a lot of steam after that, when it got into that third act. And then, super spoilers, after that, apparently there was a cure. I don't know how, no explanation as to how they got the cure, who made the cure. Did the military just have a cure on hand for this thing? Did they? How was Wings Hauser's wife cured? How was most of this town cured? That's a big fucking plot point that's just glossed over. And it's not even brought up. You just assume, oh, there's Wings Hauser's wife. I guess they're cured. How did that happen? I don't know. The movie doesn't know. To me, it's like, I like Bo Hopkins. I like Wings Hauser. Brion James, rest in peace. You know, the helicopter chase, it's real helicopters, not CGI. Some of them might be a toy, remote control. But that was nice. I mean, but that doesn't mean anything. Because you don't know anything about anybody in either one. You don't care. And like I said, the first half of the film, or 50 minutes, there's some fun B-movie time-wasterness to it. And the third act just, to me, going away from the town, going away from the crazies type of psychotic horror that was, you delve more into horror, you have your act as well, and even then that could be amped up a bit. But no. And that's the thing, like, it's okay, it's a time waster compared to a lot of films I've seen. That third act, though, is just, I don't like that it turns to a different film. I don't know if that makes sense. But, with that said, Bo Hopkins, Wings Hauser, I wish he had more to do as well. As in, that his character didn't really accomplish anything. He was pretty much along for the ride and got his ass kicked, and Bo saved him quite a few times. Is pretty much what Wings accomplished. But I wish there was more to his character, at least doing a couple things right. A couple things worthwhile. But Bo Hopkins is a badass. Like I said, the first half with Wings acting and George Kennedy's acting, I didn't mind the daughter, George Kennedy's daughter, the deputy. I didn't mind her either. There's some little horror aspects I didn't mention that were decent. There's a bit with a mom and a kid, and the deputy, the George Kennedy's daughter. I didn't mind that little bit of a scene. I think some of the supporting actors are not the best and try to be crazy, but I could give leeway on that. But, I mean, the fact that at the end I'm like, wait, there was a cure? I shouldn't be asking that at the very end of your fucking film. Or, wait, where did this helicopter chase come from? That was out of nowhere. Why is this a Western now in the third act? That just... That's why I prefer Mutant. Mutant sticks with the zombie aspect till the end of the film. And it still has a nice, fun ending to the film. Where Wings Hauser and this girl have a little bit of Saw Breeze of 13 feel to it. With all these creatures, these zombies come out of the woodwork. So yeah, Mutant, I would say I like more than this. This is a time waster. Apparently this came out on Blu-ray from Stream Factory. So if you're a fan of the film, and if it's still in print, apparently Stream Factory has a Blu-ray of this. At least at one point they did. I don't know anymore. But with that said, thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.